Hey, I'm Kenneth Wajda. I'm a professional photographer here in Colorado. Welcome to another one of my weekly gear talks. So today I'm going to talk about a wonderful camera that I started with when I first started photography. The very first time I ever looked at f-stops and shutter speeds was with an old Kodak. My father had this camera. He got it while he was in the Army in 1955-56, and this is a Kodak Retina IIIC. And they made different versions. They made the 1A and maybe a 1C. They made a 2C. This is the 3C. And as some of the earlier ones didn't have couple rangefinders. This one, because it's the capital C, they made two versions. They made a small C and a capital letter C. The capital C has a bigger viewfinder. And I prefer it because with being a glasses wearer, I can see the whole 50mm frame while wearing glasses without scratching my lens. Now this came with this wonderfully, beautifully built case, which is both leather and chrome lined. Talk about quality. And then the case had the strap built into it, but I don't like the strap, and I don't take this camera to be a shoulder camera. And you could. I prefer to leave this at home in the car and then put this in my pocket. So like the Leica 3F that I talked about, this camera is pocketable. But this has one advantage or two advantages I can think of right off the top over the Leica 3. This has a 50mm f2.0 lens, so you have 1.5 stops that you can get more light into the camera. And it's about a third of the cost. This I think you can pick up for 100, maybe 200, but I only paid 100. And you can certainly find these. And because they came with such a beautiful case, including velvet lined, a lot of them are really kept in pretty good condition because they were put into that case, and then that case was put into a bag, and you ended up with a well-protected camera. Now, this is nice and pocketable. It was also available with a pair of extension auxiliary lenses that screwed onto the front or mounted on. I actually think you take this front element off and then you mounted those in place of this front element. And you could get a 35 or an 85. And they made an accessory viewfinder if you were using one of the older models like the 3 little c. But with the 3 capital C, they actually added the 35 and the 85 frame lines. So you didn't need the accessory viewfinder anymore. But those were clunky. They were large. I wouldn't want to say they stuck out this far. And they made the camera unable to close. And you had to read the focus on the main lens and then transfer it to the second lens. It just wasn't a good system for using. And if ever you end up with those lenses and you want to play with them, great, have fun. But for me, I have no interest. I don't have those lenses, and I wouldn't even buy them because they're just, this camera is a 50mm camera. And it folds up small. It has a great German-built lens. It's a Schneider lens. Some of them also came with Rodenstock lenses. If you find those are a little bit harder to find, but they're out there too. And again, for a camera that you can take with you and put it in your pocket and have a 50f2 with you, I would say it's about the same weight as the Leica 3 and maybe a little less weight than the Leica M. But we're comparing it to the Leica 3 because the Leica 3 is pocketable. This is pocketable. Here's the Leica 3. Little different shape, but both pretty thin and both very capable. The one advantage of this is that faster lens. And for me, that lens speed sometimes is what I want. If I'm going into a party and I know I'm going to be shooting inside a lot, people are going to be sitting at a table and they're going to be playing games, say. I want the 50f2 on there. I don't want the 3.5. The 3.5 is good for the outside picnics. I can stop down a little bit, great. When you need the f2, that Leica doesn't fit in my pocket, and this does. And I find that, again, when I have a camera in my pocket, I feel like I'm much more equipped. Even if I have it over my shoulder, when I get to a party, I'll tend to put it down on the table in front of me. If I step away from that table, I don't have a camera with me. This one is always with me because it's in your pocket. So I would say this is a great camera to add to your collection if you're using cameras and you want a camera that's easy, well built, has the German feel because it is German made, has a great case, and if ever you want to drop it over your shoulder, you have a very simple way to do it. The strap is built into the case, and now you've got a well ready to take anywhere camera. It has a interesting thing. It's actually a bottom winder. So after you shoot, you wind it from the bottom, and that's the way you advance the film. And then also, if ever you're looking at these, a couple of things. If the counter counts down from a 36 to 1 or a 20 or 24 to 1, when it gets to 1, it stops shooting or advancing. And that's a protection to help you not pull the film off the spool. If you push this over to the right in the direction of the arrow, while pushing this little button, the one behind the shutter, you can advance the counter off of the 1 and then it'll work again. And that was a protection they had in place. But a lot of times you'll see these cameras and they won't fire because they're sitting on the number 1 and people think, oh, the camera's broken. But it's not broken. It just needs to be taken off of the number 1 so that the camera can continue to work. And the other thing is sometimes people can't shut the lens, can't shut the door, won't shut. It has to be on infinity for it to shut. That's the little trick on the, they want the lens pressed back as far as possible before it shuts. So if the camera lens is not on infinity, you won't be able to shut the door. But this is a great little camera to add to your collection. And again, from a user point of view, I've shot with it. It feels like it's a high quality camera. It's got a leaf shutter in it. It's quiet. You can shoot at slow shutter speeds. And I can say that the quality is good. And it's something that I reach for when I want to take a camera with a fast lens, pocketable, black and white film, usually HP5, quick, easy to go. And I don't have to think about a camera on my shoulder for that event. All right, that's today's photography talk. What's your experience? Have you used one? I think that they're worth checking out if you haven't. And that's today's photography talk. I'll be back next week. We'll talk some more cameras. As always, if you're enjoying these, hit the subscribe button. If you can support even with a cup of coffee a month, hit the Patreon, and I'll be back next week. Here's to good light.